Hello, I'm Tom, and welcome to Yahwings, a channel where we discuss all things mystical and mysterious. And today we're going to be discussing a parable, the parable of the blind men and the elephant. There are many variations of this ancient parable, but basically it's about a group of blind men who encounter an elephant. The first blind man touches the elephant's tusk and says, "This thing we found is pointy like a spear." The second blind man touches the elephant's trunk and says, "You're mistaken, this thing we found is like a snake." The third blind man touches the elephant's ear and says, "No, it's more like a large fan." The fourth blind man says, "You're all wrong." Touching the elephant's side, he argues that it's like a wall in front of him. The fifth blind man hugs the elephant's leg and says, "No, this thing is like a tree trunk." And finally, the last blind man says it's like a rope as he touches the elephant's tail. So the moral of this parable is that people tend to claim an absolute truth based on their limited subjective experience, and they tend to ignore the experiences of others. Do you see how these men have each touched on a part and claim to know the whole, and they won't listen to the differing opinions of those around them? It's also interesting how their experiences are each filtered through a comparison to a past experience, an encounter with a rope or a fan. When encountering something new, people tend to impose their own sort of self-schema on things. Now, the blind men are sometimes depicted as monks or holy men, and this is because the elephant is often seen as representing God. This interpretation was made popular by a 19th century version, a poem by John Gottfried Sachs. His poem speaks to different religions quarreling over the true nature of God, which none of them could possibly know in its entirety. Now, this version may encourage some to keep seeking and have an open mind when studying something like comparative religion, whereas other people find it pointed and feel it calls their religious leaders blind, and still others feel that Sachs is promoting unbridled relativism. Now, it would be totally ironic to say that one interpretation is wrong and this one over here is right, because I'd be behaving like the characters in the story. But I will say that I gravitate towards earlier versions from people who may not have even experienced another religious group. There are Vedic versions that could be as old as 1500 BC. There's a line in the Rig Veda that says, "Truth is one, and the wise call it by many names." And I feel these earlier versions point to this mystical notion that even though we experience the multiplicity in many forms, there is a larger unifying factor that is beyond our senses. No matter your interpretation, it's important that we keep an open mind, listen to others, and not let our past rob us of new experiences.